Welcome. Thank you for showing up. And thank you to all of you fabulous teachers for being here for the panel discussion on managing difficult toddler behaviors, which everyone knows what we're talking about. So if you don't know everyone, this is Michelle Nowacky, Dominique Wells-Moats, Naeemah Harvey, Olivia Powers, Cherise Sistrunk, and Desiree McNeill. Michelle's gonna kick it off with a little bit of brain study.
Okay. So before we jump into the Q&A, we just wanted to kind of give some insight on what's going on in your child's brain. And we thought if we give some information, then you'll know what's happening neurologically and developmentally. So when these challenging times come, you can kind of understand the science behind what's going on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of a neuron, because there are a bunch of neural connections that are happening in your child's brain. A neuron is essentially, it's a nerve cell. So it's receiving information, it's processing information, and then it's transmitting information, causing the body to respond. So even as you're sitting here right now, you're taking in stimuli through all of your five senses. You can feel the temperature through your skin. You can feel the floor under your feet. You're hearing some of the white noise happening from the projector. You're seeing us, you're seeing the presentation, and you might have a taste in your mouth, maybe mint or dinner or coffee that you just drank before you got here. And it's the same thing for your children. And so they're trying to process the world around them. And to move along, I just wanted to give you perspective of the neural activity happening in your child's mind. If you look at the specific ages here, it shows you a gradual growth of these neural connections. At 2 years old, there are 1 million connections being made per minute, and it's double the amount that adults have. So understanding that they're being inundated with information and trying to process that information is a lot. And sometimes they unravel a little bit. Because it's not to their liking or what they expect or your expectation in their minds. We really love this visual. This is taken from the concept of, we have the book right over there, The World of the Child by doctors Dan Siegel and Tina Payne-Bryson. And what they do is they separate the brain into two categories. So they have the downstairs brain and they have the upstairs brain. The downstairs brain is really made up of the brainstem and the limbic region, and it's in control of basic functioning. So breathing, your heartbeat, blinking, and it's also in charge of fight or flight, which is needed for survival. This is really the part of the brain that allows you to act before you think. Some people call it the animalistic brain because of survival. They see prey or they see a predator and they either run towards it or away from it. Now, if you go up, that's the upstairs brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex doesn't really mature until adolescence or early adulthood. And this is part of the brain that's really in control of thinking, of logic, of making decisions, and of body control. So this is part of the brain that allows you to think before you act. And so sometimes as adults, we have these big expectations for children. You know what to do, why aren't you doing it? You know to walk, but you're running. You know to drink from a cup, why are you pouring your water out to the table? What's happening in their bodies is that they need to repeat certain behaviors for cause and effect. They're really scientists learning how to behave in society. So it's our responses to these behaviors that really teach them what's appropriate and what's not. But it's all developmentally appropriate, just not socially acceptable. When your child is in their downstairs brain, this is where dysregulation occurs. And usually it's because there's an unmet need happening. Maybe they're tired, maybe they're hungry, maybe they're sick. Maybe something happened that made them feel less significant, or maybe something happened that made them feel not in control of themselves. And remember, this is a big time in their life where they want autonomy over their body. A lot of their day is decided for them. We see a lot of this dysregulation happening around mealtime, bedtime, toileting, and transitions. So we just wanted to put some topics up here for you to choose from, unless you have your own questions for us tonight on navigating some challenging behaviors.
Yeah, okay. Any questions at all? Or- Okay, let's keep. All right, make sure we're doing this the right way.
Come, Cherise. Okay, all right. So first one, dumping food onto the floor at meal times. Or cranberry juice. How we navigate it. I would say, again, the tired or it's also for us, we're realizing the next thing is nap. So they're kind of holding on for dear life at that point, right? So it's us realizing it's getting to their level. Oh, you poured out your food. Food is for our plate or food is for our mouth. And they're probably just like, ha ha ha, and it's just like, so it's then stopping and having them pick it up. In either on your plate or in the trash, And the goal is by the end of it, maybe they won't ever do it again. But then it's those other times. So then maybe that first time it's just like, okay, in the trash, we will give you some more food to try again. But maybe if it's the next day they do it again, or the third day, then that tells me you're all done. If you threw your food onto the floor, it tells me you're all done. We can try again at snack later. I think, did you have?
Too. Also, it could be, some of it could be what they're sitting in while they're eating.
Mhm.
So if they're like in a high chair or a chair where their feet is dangling, they don't really have that control. Sit there and focus and just enjoy the food. They might just be like swinging it, or trying to hold on. And after a while, they might actually get tired of that. So it's time to play. So consider like what they're actually sitting in. Like if possible, have like a little low chair for them or like a little low table. So it'll have that stability and that won't be a distraction.
I always think about too, thinking maybe why the behavior is happening. And I remember a parent years ago would say, my child's eating in their high chair and I'm walking around, and anytime I walk by, they throw food on the floor. And it was a thought I had is maybe this child is trying to communicate that they just want you to sit with them at that moment. Because what do you do when they throw food on the floor? You go over and you interact with that child. And so maybe it's that interaction that they're really seeking, and they just don't know how to communicate it to you in that moment.
And like early toddlers, I think they're still going through that course, that thing where they do something and, for the purpose of seeing what happens. They also want to see how you see your reaction. And then with your reaction, they would probably laugh, do it again, or not do it again, and you would hear us say this probably throughout the night. They will push the boundaries, and that's their job. To push boundaries. It's up to us as parents to, you too, and teachers to, set boundaries and be consistent as far as reinforcing those boundaries. Let's say they dump their food on the floor. Food is not on the floor, it stays on your plate. You need to clean that up. You might have to do that 100 times. But it's still reinforcing that boundary, is still doing the same thing. They're getting the same response from you consistently. So eventually it's just gonna phase out. Again, that's your job, to push the boundaries, see how far, how much they can get away with.
And they're good at it
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got
It's funny,
They don't get worn out.
in the classroom, we hardly see children like dumping, deliberately dumping stuff on the floor. And I'm gonna tell you a funny story about a child who deliberately dumped his water on the floor one day, and I'm still laughing about it. I was sitting at his table and he was so busy looking at me while I was drinking his water. And he went back to, and he was like, And he got so mad, I expected him to like literally throw a glass on the floor, but he looked at the water and just stopped it on the floor. You know, and I was like, this is, I had to laugh because it was an interesting reaction, but you know, again, you know, there's circumstances where they do things in the moment. It's not always sometimes, you know, the behavior, but you have to always judge, you know, the circumstances around when something happens.
And Desiree mentioned, it'll probably happen 100 times. And don't be disheartened that you'll ask your child, does the food go on the floor? They'll say, no, the food stays on your plate, in your bowl, water stays in the glass. They know it, they're still gonna do it because of that cause and effect and because of making those moral connections.
I'm realizing that the very time it does happen, it's pretty much when you have your problem. Which, you know, we don't get that much time to do, it's the very time, it's one of those times to catch up, and so I realize that's what happens.
And if you
Hey,
think about
remember
it-
me?
It's the same for her, you know, you're saying that you and her husband, it's one of the times where you guys get to catch up. Remember, she's in school, she comes home probably take a nap, so it's also her time for you to be with you guys also. So it's like, I need time too.
True. We spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Never like.
It's always about me, you know?
Unfortunately.
Crib to toddler bed.
So the first thing you want to do is if you're moving your child from a crib to a toddler bed, is you want to make sure that the room is toddler proof. So outlets are covered, anything that's climbable, you want to make sure it's attached to the wall because you want to make sure that they're completely safe in that environment because they are now free to get up and move around.
I think, and this may apply to all situations, I think anything is, I think sometimes they want to be autonomous and independent. And I think a lot of when it comes to a solution is how can you involve them in the process and working together and I think for these children who are in Montessori, where they spend all day being able to be independent and make these choices for them, I think sometimes, and not saying all home environments, but sometimes at home, it's like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. And they're used to being in an environment during the school day of, you know, having more of that independence piece of like, how can we blend it to where we're working together as a team to hopefully, you know, they can be a little bit more cooperative. They're still a toddler, of course, but something that comes to mind about transitioning is having them be a part of the process of like, they're seeing the crib, maybe it's being transitioned into that toddler bed or you're building a new toddler bed rather than just you're doing it while they sleep and then the next day, all of a sudden there's this new bed. And I think having them be a part of the process of those transitions to where it's not just, oh my gosh, there's this new thing. Like, of course, they're going to have this big reaction because they haven't experienced changes in the way that we as adults do. And change is hard even as an adult. So you can only imagine like how they're feeling when there's, you know, something new.
I like to think about any transition as weaning, when you're weaning a child of, you know, breastfeeding. You know, you give them a little bit less as time go on. And in this case, with the bed, you introduce, you know, something new, like, you know, over time. Some of the cribs had, you know, come down. Cribs are very fancy now, up in my house for a little. You can turn them into like a toddler bed, you can drop it lower, instead of high. So there's all sorts of things you can do. So you can, instead of having them higher, drop it low and eventually take one, turn it into that toddler bed. You know, just take the, maybe first you can lower the railing, have them stay like that. I don't care until like, oh no, that will come out, you know? And for me, that's okay, you know? If they, you know, they're using the muscles and it's not an unsafe situation, as long as they know this is where it's bedtime. And it's every time they come out of bed, you redirect them back into the bed. It's bedtime, it's bedtime, it's bedtime. And again, you'll be doing that repeatedly. But I think about that again. I think about every transition as weaning a little bit at a time, to eventually getting to where you need to be. And you have to also, you also have to set the environment, We have the children are in the classroom where they can access anything. They spill some water, they can access a mop or towel. The chairs at their size, tables at their size. If they need a snack, they can have a snack. It's something like their rooms. If they want to change their clothes, have clothes at a level with, they can access that. So let them give them choices. That kind of help build their independence and, have books in their room where they can access it. Keep it simple, don't overwhelm the room, make it safe and, eventually they will just love their space. Toddlers love space to be their own. It's one of the reasons why they don't like parents in the classroom. It's their world, it's their space. And they love that. So it's the same as home. Make it their space. Make sure it's safe and engaging.
And I'm thinking about what Olivia said about including them in that process, talking about it. Best thing you can do is have a conversation with them. What kind of bed you think you will want? What color? You can even pick out sheets together. They're good with visuals. So if you have a calendar, just marking off the day of it's this many days until it's time to sleep in your baby. It's exciting and hype it up. They like games and stuff like that, but just a good visual, talking about it, reading about it. We'll get more into bibliotherapy later, but just reading about it. I know I had a child come in with a book from crib to bed. Well, from crib to bed, that's the name of the book. But she was, no, I'm going to sleep in my big girl bed soon. Can we read this book? We surely can. So it's us, having that relationship, that bridging that gap between home and school, and just letting them know, like, oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Yes, we can read this book together. So trust me, there's a book for everything, but we'll get I'll talk about that more later.
At times when children are starting to transition from diaper to underwear, I will always suggest that it would be a good time to transition into a big kid bed, because it's sort of like, oh, you're a big girl or you're a big kid now, we're ready to bring big boy underwear or big girl underwear. So it's sometimes a nice segue to getting them from that crib into that toddler bed, because they feeling that they're growing up, they're getting big, So it's just introducing the toddler bed is kind of like a good time to introduce the bed while you transition to underwear.
One thing that Dom said was bridging home to school. And something that you can do is contact your teacher and send us pictures. If they're going to a new bed and the bed's there, we want to see it and we can talk about it at circle. And that gives your child some feelings of significance. And look at me, look at my new bed. And they get to show their friends. And if it's something they don't want to do, they won't do it, and that's fine. But more likely, they would like to do that. And it's sharing a piece of themselves with the community too.
Are there any disadvantages to keeping them in a crib longer? So for Kai, it was a hard transition. We also happened to do it at a time where a lot of things going on. But for Nico, she's just fantastic in her crib, doesn't mind it at all. She's very independent, but she doesn't try to come out of the crib. She doesn't really come in. We're just great. I love it. You don't have to worry about you when you're in there. So we're not really trying to, advance her to the toddler bed. Yes. So I don't know.
The only thing that comes to mind for me, I guess, is the toileting piece. If they have to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, when you start to maybe take away the sleeping diaper of like, there is that restrictive movement. They can't get in and out of the crib to go to the bathroom or, so that's the only thing that I can think of. But I don't know if anyone else has
That,
it.
that nighttime, piece is gonna happen.
That goes on for a long time.
How to get out the house on time and get to Greene Towne Montessori School. Or anywhere. Leave the house.
So the other day, we were discussing this and we were talking about that there are manageable moments and there are teachable moments. And we want to provide the children with teachable moments in time as much as possible. But when you are on a schedule, those are the more of the manageable times. Got to get to school, doctor's appointment, something's happening. And we were saying to help out a little bit. You know, you get down on their level, if they're putting on their shoes and they don't want to, you can say, oh, I'll hold back. You put your toes in first, right? So this is creating almost an intimate moment with you and you're helping them along. Get your toes in. Okay, push your heel in. Next, your straps, and you let them do the straps. If they still say no, I'll do this strap. You do the next one. And so it's that back and forth.
On the other hand, if they want to do it and they don't want your help. That happens, I don't have to tell them. And it takes an hour to put one shoe on. You just really have to talk to them even before, you just put it in their head, like before it's time to put on their shoes and they just want to do it. Okay, I'm going to help you put on one shoe this time. Or you know, so you can kind of work with them so they don't feel like, oh, you're just putting on their shoes, you can get out the door. So they like to build that independence, but at the same time, you do have to choose your battles. So yeah, in a way, you have to find a way to like partner with your child in those little instances, just so they can, you know, grow. And yeah, you just have to support them with that. And it takes a lot of patience on your part. I don't have to tell you that. But yeah, just power through it.
Yeah.
You got it.
And I feel in that instance where they want to do it and sometimes they don't want your help and clearly they need your help. That's when you say, oh, show me how you do it. And then you could say, oh, I see you're having some trouble getting your foot in there. How about I hold the front for you? You know, oh, I see you're having some trouble getting the back in. Let me show you. You can do the hand over hand and use the finger and pull the back out. There's a way to help it out, making them feel like you're helping them. It's just subtle little things, like even just holding their shoes steady in front so they can do it. Because sometimes they try and put their shoe in, their foot in, and in the shoe, and the shoe is going out. End up like that, you know. So it's like you're just holding the front of the shoe. You know, it's supporting them. You know, they don't feel like you're doing it for them, but you're helping. You know, I always tell the story. I tell the story 100 times. My grandson, he wants to get in the car by himself. I drove a Jeep at the time. He wants to climb up. Couldn't do it. Clearly he couldn't do it. And I'm like, let's go. It takes like, if I leave home after 7, I'll be late. I'm like, we gotta go. And he's, no, I can do it. No, I can do it. And I'm like, okay. So he's going, and I'm like, gently lifting his butt while he's crying. And he was like, and he got it. And he's like, I did it. I'm like, you did it. You know? Yes, you did. He's like, you know. But it's you know, they're here and we're teaching them to be independent and want to be independent. And that's where a lot of behaviors come in, happen at home, because they want to do things themselves. They're trying to assert their authority. They want to be independent. And sometimes they just are not, you know, capable of it. You know, they just need a little support.
I think also going back to preparing the environment, or, you know, as much as you can, maybe the night before, or just over time, you're establishing these routines and schedules so that they know what to expect. So like at school, they have a cubby, they know where their shoes and their coat and everything is. So like, what could it look like at home? Like maybe there's a command hook where they hang their coat, or some sort of defined space that, you know, they can keep their shoes by the door, or what have you, so that, you know, it becomes this routine that hopefully helps of like, oh, like it's almost time for us to go. I know where I can go and get my things and start getting ready, especially as they get older too. I think that.
Michelle and I were saying in the past, we had parents bring children in the pajamas. I was like, he doesn't want this. Like, fine, we'll do. And then the child would come in and we'll, guide them through the process of dressing themselves. And that's a learning, that's a teaching moment, they learn from that experience. They, we can see physically, because sometimes, in the classroom, we see children being able or trying to put on shoes and socks, pants. It's rare that we, see them put on shirt, which is sometimes more difficult. So, it's always a moment for us to see what they can do. And choose your battles. That's my thing. As a parent, as a teacher, sometimes you just have to choose your battles.
Olivia mentioned routine, and it just made me think of a situation that happened recently in my classroom with a child who did not want to put her jacket away, did not want to put her backpack away, did not want to change her shoes. So instead of me saying all of the stuff she already knows, like your jacket goes in your cubby, you have to change your shoes into your inside shoes. Instead, I sat down with her and I said, okay, come in. What do you do with your backpack? She said, put it in my cubby. I said, okay, what do you do with your jacket? Where does it go? On my hook. And what about your shoes? What shoes do you wear? My inside shoes. And where do you change them? Do you go to the bench or do you sit in a chair? She said, chair. I said, okay, well, which chair are you going to use to switch your shoes? And she got her chair, brought it over, and did everything without me saying, this is what you do. So sometimes it's just reframing how you're giving instructions and including the child by just having them go through the routine of what it is that the routine looks like.
Yeah, it's gonna take a minute for that wordplay too, because it still happens to
Yeah.
me on a daily basis. And like, one of the kids in my class were just like staring at each other. And then it's like on the sixth try, I'm like, I say something differently. They're like, okay, Miss Dom. And I'm like, wait, what is that? Like, so it's gonna take some time. Be patient with yourself as well.
Or even a different caregiver or adult. They'll come in new to the situation and say something and the child doesn't. And maybe it happens at home too with your partner of like, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes. And then you just came in and did it. And you're like,
Yeah, I will come in at 11 and she's like, I'm sitting here with her for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, friend.
And it's hard to not take that personally, but it's also, okay, they just needed like a new, maybe we sat together for too long. They need that different, not change space.
In my classroom recently, a child, the excitement of coming into the classroom, they love being in their space. She literally walked out of her backpack, out of her jacket, and walked into the classroom choosing. So I didn't see anything. I went over and I looked at the stuff on the floor and I said, oh my, is that a good place for a jacket? Is that a good place for a backpack? So every time I use that tone of voice, all the children gather around, right? And of course she came, my backpack, my jacket. And I'm like, where does that go?
I feel like all the other children or the other siblings hold them accountable.
Yeah.
She that was such and such. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not me. Like, I didn't know. I keep hearing that my child uses the toilet at school, but she keeps saying no at home. Yeah, that happens.
There's a social element at school to using the bathroom and sitting on the toilet where they go in and we have 2 toilets or 3 toilets or 4, depending on which bathroom. And they get to go in with their friends and they get to sit down and have conversations. They see other children using the toilet, maybe someone from a different classroom coming in. So not like us. It is a social hour for them and it's building community skills. And sometimes it turns into a party and you have to shut the party down.
Bouncers and the whole
But the social element is a motivating factor for them.
I have to remember in toddlers, toileting is kind of sort of built into our routine. It's like snack, lunch, or anything else. It's just part of what we do every day. So by now they're used to it. They would sit at the toilet at school, but not at home. But sometimes it's reverse. Parents see a lot of that happening in school, and we see nothing of it. And sometimes some children, it's where they're most comfortable, you know. Some children, even though the toilets are this small, some children don't like sitting on that toilet. It's not what they have at home. It's different. So, and then at school, they, you know, they want to be, they see their friend peeing in the toilet and getting to flush. Because sometimes they would say, I sit on the toilet, and it's okay to sit on the toilet, and they a second and they get up, try to get toilet paper and try to flush. And we said, no, no, no. You only use toilet paper and flush when you let pee or poop in the toilets. You know, so they get all that language at school. So they're more inclined to do things at school that they typically want to do at home. And again, sometimes it's in reverse. Parents see that people.
And sometimes we want them to sit a little longer, so I'm like, ooh, how about I count? And they're starting to get a little, I'm German, mom can't do that, but that's fine. Count to 10, it's like slow too, it's not like anything fast, like 1, and I'm showing them the visual. 1, 2, 3, and they're like, yeah, I don't like. So, you know, to get them little, because again, it's that 1 second, if that. Oh, I tried, and I'm like, yeah. Oh.
And then
On the edge of the toilet.
Yeah,
I did it. And then, you know, when someone does pee in the toilet, it's like a celebration.
That's when we can party.
It's like, yay, the party, the dance and everything. So they want to be part of that, you know, they want to, you know, get that sense of pride too. So it's like, I sit on the toilet, you know, but you know, toileting is it's
It's a process.
Yeah.
It's not a weekend.
Yes, it's not a weekend.
It's not a weekend.
It's not a weekend.
It's a whole process.
And also Desiree mentioned like it's a routine at school. It's like a snack. And so sometimes creating that routine at home is helpful. Like after a child wakes up, they go to the bathroom. Before they leave for school, or if you're going to the park, before you leave the house, everyone uses the toilet, parents too. And then before bedtime, of course. And, you know, making sure there are specific times during the day that you go and it's consistent.
And this is another opportunity, as Michelle was talking about, just shoot a message to your teachers. Let us know how things are going.
Yeah.
Because something magical might happen at home, and we don't know about it. And it goes beyond the actual bathroom in the classroom, because we talk about it through the morning and at circle time too. Yeah, that's a big deal. Eat in the toilet today.
And what kind of underwear they have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you kind
I
of
guess
touched
we
on that.
touched that one.
quite a bit.
That's your favorite probably, repeating unwanted behavior.
I want to
Silence.
talk a little bit about children not wanting to sleep in their own bed. Sometimes, you know, parents, some people let children kind of go back. You know, I remember when, you know, we had a parent that said, you know, she comes in to the bed with us at night, like, you know, she would sleep in her crib, but like in early mornings, she would come in and they felt so guilty about that. And, you know, culturally, some cultures, you know, that's acceptable, and in their culture, they were fine with it. And we have to take that into consideration and say, you know, what do you want? You know, what makes you feel okay? How does that affect the child? So culturally speaking, we have to be sensitive to that, because
Whatever fits your family.
yeah. My kids were teenagers and still couldn't sleep in my bed.
One of the things about children smiling when they're doing a behavior that you wish they weren't doing, sometimes they do it after the behavior, sometimes they do it before, and that's a part of the cause and effect, right? And so our response is going to mold what they do in the future. But it's almost like, I'm gonna push Dominique, you're supposed to stop me. You are my emotional container. Because right now, all of my neurons are firing. I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I can't help myself. You help me. And then the smiling afterwards sometimes is I did this thing that's considered bad or wrong, and do you still love me? So sometimes they're looking at you like, "Ah, you still love me, right?" You know, as they get older, sometimes it becomes like, I'm sorry. And it's not them thinking about themselves, it's about what they think you're feeling about them, is that response.
I think it's really hard. Because of course, in those moments, like emotions are high for you and the child. It's really hard to not match their energy, but trying to remain as calm as possible, even though they might have just slapped you across the face and are now laughing laughing. But I think, being so conscientious of how you react in those moments, that you're not matching their energy, but you're being their calm energy in those moments, as hard as it can be, I think makes a world of difference, especially, after, when it is a more neutral time, that you can like talk through what happened, because you're certainly not going to get anywhere talking about it right in the moment. But yeah, we always say like, be their calm, not their chaos.
I do have some of my 2.5 and 3-year-olds. They're feeling some very big emotions. And so, I take my breath before I go over and get down to their level. And because they have that language now, like I'm flipping it back on them. Like, are you okay? And they're like, no. Or they're just like, and they tell me, I hit such and such. You did. Why did you hit them? Like, what happened? Then they go into well, they touched me over. I said, oh, I know how frustrating that could be. Or they'll tell me, my heart's feeling sad. And I'm like, I hear you. Being able to like relate to them too, and letting them know like that can be frustrating. Like it's okay. Yeah, because again, they're just like, they're feeling like also that shame, the embarrassment, and they're just like, you still love me, right? Like, always and forever.
But what Michelle said about, a child trying for someone and looking at you, I've caught that a couple times. And I look at them and we make eye contact and I do the eyebrow. I'm like, that's my own body.
It all comes back real quick. You just see the handshake and I'm like,
Right. Yeah. So they typically know, but they want you to reinforce that boundaries. Again, they're gonna keep pushing boundaries, consistently. That's your job.
And Dom mentioned, taking a breath before you enter a situation. When you're supposed to be the emotional container for somebody else and your emotions are high, or maybe like Olivia said, you did just get slapped across the face and you're kind of stunned. Sometimes having a mantra is so helpful. And for me anyway, it's the brain, right? They're supposed to be doing this. I can only control myself. And, I tell myself like my reaction to this situation is going to either help this child or it's going to make them feel less significant. And so how am I going to walk into this? I'm not taking a long time to think about that.
It's also okay to model in that moment, given that you're in a safe environment, of like, I need to take a break and then I'll come back, like I need to take a break. You need to take a break. Why don't we take some deep breaths and then we'll come back? And like, it's okay to model how you, navigate your dysregulation. Yes.
So what are we supposed to say if getting hit in the face? We don't want to be angry, but
Right.
we also don't want to encourage smiling or back.
Oh, for sure.
We want to be like stoic, but we also want to remove ourselves from that situation. So
I think you don't want to make it clear that that behavior is unacceptable. And that's first, right?
Yeah.
I think naming the feeling, like if like they're angry or sad, like I see you're angry, I will not let you put your hands on my butt. I will not let you hit me. And maybe you're holding them and giving them a big bear hug, or that's a moment of like, if she has a designated space of like, oh, why don't, we go to the cool down corner, there's some, something similar in our classroom of like, somewhere safe where she can kind of, work through those emotions of like, you know, you take a break, I'll take a break. I will come back and check on you and maybe you set a timer. Or maybe it is you're just sitting and like giving her that big bear hug squeeze and then you'll feel them kind of like melt. And then that's when it's like, okay, like, and then, you know, you'll find that point of connection of like, you know, they of course don't mean to hit, you know, like they're not wanting to, but.
It doesn't happen very often. I always feel really weird about the physical controlling part. It's more like I was trying to separate my body and do that.
Right.
That's what
I mean, always asking like if they want a hug too, or like maybe it is just of like, you know, we take our deep breaths and then, you know, I'll come back and check on you, but I will not let you hit me. And that's when you maybe you stand up and, you know, kind of remove yourself, but obviously you're nearby.
it never happens, but I want to have a plan. for that.
Yeah. And even if you have a plan and something still happens and you will react in a way that
Yeah.
no, you shouldn't. We're talking right now of like perfect situation. You're gonna be calm. No, you won't. There are some times you'll totally lose your cool and we all have to. We are certainly not perfect, but it's how you prepare that as well. So, you know, and when there is that neutral time of like, I am so sorry that I reacted. I should have done, or talking through that problem solving too, of like, they're naming their emotions, what could they have done differently, so that you have that point of connection too, because we all make mistakes.
And remember when you use that language, you know, to control behavior or to talk about the behavior. Remember, totally don't, not too many words, you know, because then they hear blah, 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 blah. You know, and don't, you know, let it go on too long. Again, it happens in the moment, you know, have them calm down, then address it and leave it alone. You know, if I say something happened at school, don't go home and say, well, you did that at school. You know, it's done. You know, we had a situation at school. Don't go home and say, well, you shouldn't have done that. Or, you know, talk about it further. That's just prolonging and then, you know.
And they often don't remember. They're so
Yeah.
present and in the moment. I think that's also really hard as an adult. Like, we remember everything.
Yeah.
And they are just so like immediate that they very quickly get over and like move on to the next thing. And you're like, I need like a lot more deep breaths.
That's
Um,
why we don't have timeout at school, because
Yeah.
you put a child in timeout and they have no idea why they're sitting right there. You know, you sit them in a corner until they, you know, they're upset, in a little area where they can learn to self-soothe, they'll, you know, cry now, which is necessary. But never put children in timeout again. The child is sitting there in a chair and they're like, no idea why they're sitting there. It's so ineffective.
Okay.
Okay.
You're talking about it's like pushing barriers and then the helpfulness of a routine. And how do you think about when those things like collide, where it's like, hey, they're pushing their barriers, like you're trying to get them out the door, they're like, I'm not brushing my teeth. And you're like, okay, I don't really care if you brush your teeth or not this one time, but I'm trying to establish a routine so that you learn it. And if I let you not brush your teeth, which I don't really care about this morning, but it's like, well, then it's harder to like next morning and it becomes a thing where it's like, well, I didn't do it last time, what else can I not do? Or I'm not gonna do it again. So I guess how do you guys think about the pick your battles?
Yeah.
But I'm also sometimes I'm trying to establish your routine and I want it to become routinized.
Yeah. I would say, you know, you brush your teeth now or in 2 minutes. You want to do it now or in 2 minutes, and let them choose. Give them two choices, but you are going to brush your teeth in your head and you're all going to brush your teeth. No, and they will.
They are creative.
And they will say, well, and then you might say in 5 minutes, and you say no, in now or in 2 minutes, and that's when you go back, now or in 2 minutes. And we use that, we call it a 5-minute rule when we, you know, have the children potty trained. Will be asked, okay, it's time to use the toilet, and they, you know, you want the toilet process to be as enjoyable as possible. So they have a tantrum. You don't want them to go down that. So you say, okay, you can use the toilet now or in 5 minutes. They would say in 5 minutes. And in 2 minutes, you go back. Because they built a habit.
No sense of time.
And but when you're giving them those choices, you have to get them to agree, right? You have to say, oh, get a nod from them, yes, you know, and then, okay, 5 minutes, and then you go back and say, well, you're 5 minutes up, you said 5 minutes is up, and yeah, I would say 90% of the time that usually works. And they will,
And you have the video recording of them.
And that's when you say.
Play it back.
Well, and that's when you say, nope, 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 you said 5 minutes, and you, because it's consequences. You made a choice, now you have to follow it through.
Might also be a good time for you to brush your teeth with them. Do it together.
Ask them, do you want to turn on the water or should I turn on the water? Actually, let me say that. Do you want me to turn on the water or do you want to turn on the water? Because always say this, the thing that you want them to say that last. That's what they remember. Yeah.
It's the last thing they heard.
They're like, they're not going with anything that you're doing, and they're like, we will brush our teeth before nap. And I'm like.
No one believes you.
Like recently I have, so every morning we put out, a fruit for snack. Usually it's a clementine or, apples, bananas, something. So this morning I put out, or that morning I put out bananas, and a child really wanted to do clementine. And I was, well, we banana cutting this morning, and he said, no clementine. I was like, well, we have banana cutting this morning, no clementine. I was like, no. Then he pointed to apple. I said, no. And then he said, okay. Like,
He wanted to wear you down a
Yeah.
little bit.
Testing you. When will she give in?
Or turn it into a song, but
That's why the consistency is so important, and if you say something, then make sure you do it and you follow the routine that you're setting. Because they are problem solvers, and if you give in that moment, it's not that they're manipulating the situation. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed, remember, so they don't have that capability. What they're doing is they're saying, oh, well, if I just push, push, and push, and push, that's how I get what I want. That's the routine that I have established with my family.
You have to push back. Okay, so real quickly, I just wanted to share two big words. Okay, bibliotherapy, these are things that we do at school. Bibliotherapy, by definition, is an expressive treatment that involves the reading of specific text with the purpose of healing. This comes to life at circle time. We'll talk about that in a second. And emotional vocabulary, a collection of words used to express feelings and reactions to certain events. Now, with vocabulary, that can be taught just like anything else that they're learning. So they have, this is my happy and sad. Okay.
Cherise was using it this evening.
So children might actually be able to say these words. I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm silly, or I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset. But they might not be able to say, I'm frustrated, I'm hungry, I'm scared even. Yeah, so you have to sort of like just give them the words. And remember that receptive language definitely comes before verbal. So once you do that like consistently, they're taking it in. They might not be giving it back to you immediately, but it does work. Now, these are just a handful of some of our go-to emotional vocabulary books that we just mingle in at circle time. These type of books are not for like emergency cases only. Literally just mingle it into your story time at home. Pete the Cat. We love Pete the Cat. And what's fun about Pete the Cat book is they really use like facial expressions and things like that to kind of go along with the words. My Many Colored Days. And the way I feel also, they have like a lot of like the illustration, color, and the text used in this book really emphasize like the emotions. And feelings book. You see lots of funny faces, bright colors. It's something that really draws children in. these are some of our key phrases that you probably heard from you've heard, and you'll hear at conference, and you'll hear, you know, often. Here are some resources for you.
We have some here if you want to look at them at the end, but
Yeah, like the positive discipline 0 to 3 we have here. We have the whole brain child at the end. Your teachers, your child's teacher, such a great resource. Always reach out to them. And we do have Dr. Lisa Dissinger on staff as well, who's our school psychologist. And she helps us out and she's, here to help you as well. Oh, and Instagram, we love transforming toddlerhood. So if you're on social media, that would be someone to follow. They're a parenting coach, but they are very much aligned with what we do here.
should also plug the shared shelf up front here, has a lot of resources. I know some parents are starting to read and put like a little book report in a folder up there. So if you don't have time to read a whole book, you can access that and flip through and just see kind of like the highlights and key things that might be helpful to use at home as well.
And that's all that we have for you today.
Did a whole presentation. That's all we
That's all we got.
Not exactly related to what was here, but there are times, so we have two, and actually one just turned 5 and the 2.5-year-old. And the 5-year-old's like pretty particular and likes to create and know things and big things, and he's very attached to them. They're very special. And then our little one likes to come in and kind of like taunt him, and he'll be like, please give me my personal space. And she'll be like,
Oh, you wanted space?
It's like, how do you deal with that? Because she knows. I mean, it's kind of this, it's kind of like the unwanted behavior, but she's smiling. But it's not like really, really bad. How do you explain it to that?
It's similar language in the classroom too, that we use of like, and I think in those moments too, of like kind of repeating, like your older child's message. I heard he said he wanted space. Let's go and do, and maybe you go and do another activity together and try and like distract or involve her in like another task. They love to help. It's even just switching laundry or sweeping or, like something that else that needs to be done in the house. I think is a great way to like maybe pull her away.
That's a job of siblings.
Yeah, also there.
The importance of his space and what he's working on. In the classroom, it's the same thing as Olivia said. If a child is working on something and they go over and try to touch him, we say, tell the child to say, this is my work, please walk away. And it's then the teacher's job to ensure that we follow through and say, I heard this child say, this is my work. Now we go find something else. So you don't just as a child to walk away and just be wandering. You direct them to something age appropriate, something they would enjoy. So if she's doing that with him, let's let Kai work. Just a matter of fact, let Kai work on what he's working on. Let you and I go find something else to work on. That might help the situation.
Is there any way to encourage like them to come up with a resolution on their own?
You can ask Kai, since he's the older one, say, how can Nico help with this? And kind of facilitate that. And ask his permission first, because this is his work. How can Nico help with this? Maybe it's coloring, can Nico use red on over here? Can she use, and have his input on how, she can get involved.
I'm also thinking, similar to what we were saying about the toddler smiling and wanting your attention, that Nico probably really would love Kai's attention, and Kai would probably be, able to think about it that way, like, wow, he really wants to be
maybe this isn't the thing you could do together, but is there something that they do enjoy doing together? Because she wants to be with you, you know what I mean? And, I think that, is never, I used to lord it over my children when they would fight. Happy dogs, I'm like, look, you guys are our siblings, you are always gonna be there for each other. It is, you know, it doesn't matter, you're gonna love each other.
Figure it out. We're gonna love each other forever. My mom would always say, you guys are gonna be best friends one day. We will be there like, ugh.
I know.
And now we're best friends. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much.